Imagine mastering chemical sanitation, perfecting a straight razor shave without leaving a single nick, and logging something like 1,500 hours of highly specialized training.
Right, it's a massive time commitment.
Yeah, exactly. You put in all that time, you build up this incredible expertise, and then you apply for a U.S. work visa only for the federal government to just stamp your file with two completely devastating words: unskilled labor.
It really is one of the most frustrating paradoxes we see in U.S. labor and immigration law today.
Oh, totally.
You have states demanding a level of education that's basically equivalent to a college associate's degree, right? But then the federal government looks at the exact same profession and essentially classifies it right alongside entry-level seasonal work.
It makes no sense. And that structural disconnect is exactly what we are unpacking today. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are pulling apart a really comprehensive deep research report from August 2026.
Yeah, there's a lot to get through in this one.
For sure. The focus here is on the booming U.S. barbering profession, but specifically, we're looking at it through the lens of foreign nationals, with a really heavy emphasis on Indian entrepreneurs who are looking to break into this market.
Which is such an interesting angle because it's a huge demographic with a ton of capital ready to deploy.
Exactly. So our mission today is to unpack the real opportunities here, decode all those massive immigration and licensing hurdles, and give you the exact roadmap for opening a legal business over there. Even if you never plan to pick up a pair of clippers in your life, this deep dive is just a fascinating case study in how you navigate complex U.S. bureaucracy, labor shortages, and business structuring.
Right, because we're looking at a system where the front door for actual workers is virtually bolted shut.
Yeah, welded shut, honestly.
Pretty much. But then the side door for business owners is surprisingly wide open.
Yeah.
And to understand why anyone would even bother navigating this regulatory labyrinth in the first place, you really have to look at the economic engine driving it.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the scale of this industry really surprised me.
Yeah, the data in this report just totally shatters that outdated image of the neighborhood barbershop where haircuts cost 10 bucks.
Right, the guy down the street with a single chair.
Exactly. Men's grooming has fundamentally transformed into a premium service industry. We are seeing a massive surge in these barber spa hybrid concepts. Places offering bespoke beard design, high-end skincare, complex detailing.
And the Bureau of Labor Statistics data from the report actually backs up that whole cultural shift with hard numbers. They're projecting a 5% growth rate for the profession between 2024 and 2034.
Which actually outpaces the average for all other occupations.
Right. So we are looking at roughly 35,300 new jobs coming online.
Yeah, and the wage data is even more telling. As of May 2024, the median hourly wage for barbers sits at $18.73.
Which already beats the median for all occupations across the board.
It does. But in this specific industry, the median really doesn't tell the whole story. The top 10% of earners are pulling in well over $37.71 an hour.
Oh, wow. So let's break down the mechanics of how a barber actually reaches that top tier, because the report highlights this massive shift in how these professionals structure their work, right?
Yeah, the business model has completely evolved.
You still have your traditional W-2 employees working at massive chains like Great Clips or whatever. But the real leverage, the actual mechanism for pulling in that higher income, is what they call the booth rental model.
Right, and the IRS classifies these booth renters as independent contractors.
Which completely changes the game.
It really does. It totally changes the economic dynamic. You don't work for the shop owner anymore. You are basically operating a distinct micro-business within their infrastructure.
The way I was thinking about it, it's basically the cloud computing model applied to haircuts. Or like being a chef renting a kitchen inside a larger restaurant.
That's a great way to put it.
You don't own the building, you don't deal with the plumbing or the waiting room furniture. You just rent the bandwidth, which is your chair, for a flat fee. Maybe $100 to $400 a week in rent.
Right, but the software, meaning your personal brand, your specific clientele, your pricing, that is entirely yours.
Exactly. Once you cover that weekly overhead, the profit margin on literally every subsequent haircut goes straight into your pocket.
Which is exactly why the report emphasizes that social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok, they're no longer just optional marketing tools.
They're mandatory.
Yeah, they're critical infrastructure for this business model now. A highly skilled barber uses localized social media algorithms to showcase their specific fade techniques to a very specific zip code.
Because they control their own book of business, right? So a viral post on TikTok translates directly into a fully booked chair the next morning.
Exactly. And if you hustle and really optimize that digital presence, scaling your income to $50,000 or $80,000 a year is entirely feasible, especially when you factor in the standard 10 to 25% tip per service.
It's incredible. So assuming you have that hustle, right, and you understand the digital marketing mechanics, where is the actual money being made? Like, where is the optimal place to set up shop?
Well, the report gives us the top 3 jurisdictions for high-earning barber career opportunities. And this is based directly on that May 2023 BLS data.
Okay, what are we looking at?
The geographic concentration of wealth is just fascinating here. Number 1, leading the entire nation, is the District of Columbia.
DC makes sense.
Right. The mean hourly wage there is an astonishing $43.18, which translates to roughly $89,810 annually.
Just think about the underlying mechanism there for a second. DC has this massive concentration of high-income professionals, politicians, consultants, people who are constantly on camera or in high-stakes meetings.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a highly appearance-conscious market where disposable income is very high, so the ceiling for premium grooming services just skyrockets.
Yeah, and exactly the same economic force is at play in the number 2 spot on the list, which is Washington State.
Driven heavily by the Seattle tech hub, I'm assuming.
Precisely. The mean hourly wage there sits at $29.73, or about $61,830 annually.
Okay, and the third spot?
Coming third is New York, offering $23.90 an hour, which comes out to roughly $49,700 annually.
Now, with those kinds of margins, especially in a place like DC where barbers are making nearly 90 grand a year, basic economics suggests you'd just see a flood of foreign talent saturating the market, right?
You would think so.
Like people would rush in, increasing the supply of barbers and driving those wages down, but that hasn't happened.
No, it hasn't.
And the reason it hasn't happened is this hidden, hyper-localized wall of state licensing boards.
It is honestly a phenomenal example of localized protectionism. There is no federal license to cut hair in the United States.
None at all.
Right. Instead, you have 50 separate state fiefdoms, and every single one has its own complex rulebook.
The baseline requirement just to sit for the exams is staggering. You are mandated to complete between 1,000 and 1,500 hours of training at a state-approved school.
And that is not cheap.
No, we are talking about $10,000 to $25,000 in tuition costs. Plus, it takes 9 to 18 months of your life where you usually can't work a full-time job.
And the discrepancy between states really highlights the arbitrary nature of the whole system.
How so?
Well, the report notes that New York requires roughly 900 hours of training. But if you want to operate in California or Texas, the state boards there demand a grueling 1,500 hours.
I mean, I understand the safety aspect. You are working with sharp blades, you're using chemical relaxers, so you absolutely need to understand infection control.
Right.
But 1,500 hours is dangerously close to the training required for some actual medical technicians.
It really is.
It forces the question, are these state boards actually prioritizing public health? Or are they functioning as gatekeepers to artificially restrict the supply of labor and just protect local wages?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the economic outcome certainly leans toward the latter. The exams themselves totally reinforce this barrier.
Right, because it's not just a multiple choice test.
Exactly. You've written tests on chemistry and anatomy, sure, but that's followed by strict practical demonstrations. The examiners stand there and grade your sanitation protocols, your ability to execute a straight razor shave on a live model. It's intense.
So what happens if you are, say, a master barber from New Delhi? You have 10 years of experience, a massive portfolio of incredible work, and flawless technique. Can you just present your portfolio to the Texas State Board and challenge the exam?
In almost every single case, no. Yeah. Foreign credentials rarely receive any direct reciprocity. The system forces foreign-trained professionals to undergo these complex background evaluations, and ultimately, most of them are required to just start completely from scratch.
That is brutal.
It is. They have to pay American tuition all over again, log those hundreds of hours from zero, and then pass the board exams in English.
So this state-level barrier is an absolute nightmare on its own. But when you collide that hyper-localized state regulation with federal immigration law, it triggers a devastating domino effect for foreign workers.
This is where we return to that core conflict, that paradox we opened with. Because barbering doesn't require a bachelor's degree, U.S. immigration essentially classifies it as an unskilled profession.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because it just defies all logic.
Right.
Texas forces you to study for 1,500 hours of specialized technical training just to hold a pair of shears legally.
Right.
Yet, the federal government slaps an unskilled label on you, completely locking you out of standard skilled immigration routes like the H-1B visa.
Exactly. And because the H-1B route is closed off, the report details how Indian nationals in particular are forced into analyzing two highly restrictive visa categories.
Okay, let's look at those two paths.
The first is the H-2B visa. Now, this is meant for temporary, non-agricultural workers. It's capped at 66,000 globally per year.
Wait, if the H-2B is strictly designed for temporary labor, how does a barbershop actually utilize that? I mean, I can see a ski resort needing instructors for 4 months, or maybe a beachside hotel staffing up for the summer rush.
Right, seasonal demand.
But hair grows year-round. How on earth does an employer prove to the Department of Labor that a local barbershop has a seasonal need?
Honestly, they rarely can, and that is the fatal flaw of the H-2B strategy for this industry.
I can imagine.
The burden of proof is entirely on the employer to demonstrate a peak load or a one-time occurrence. A year-round neighborhood barbershop simply doesn't fit the statutory definition, so it makes this route basically a dead end for almost everyone.
Which leaves only the EB-3 other workers visa. And unlike the H-2B, this is an actual path to permanent residency, right? A green card. But the mechanism to get it sounds agonizing.
Agonizing is the right word. It all starts with something called the PRM labor certification. Before a visa can even be requested, the U.S. employer has to definitively prove to the federal government that there is not a single qualified American worker available to take the job.
And the way they force employers to prove that negative is just incredibly antiquated.
Oh, it's totally archaic.
The employer literally has to run print advertisements in Sunday newspapers. They have to post notices with state workforce agencies, wait months for responses, and meticulously document every single interaction.
Yeah, it is a massive drain of time and costs thousands of dollars in legal fees.
And let's say you do all that, you somehow survive the PRM process. Indian nationals then hit an even larger structural wall, right?
I do, the per-country visa limits.
Right, the visa bulletin backlog. The best way to understand this for our listeners is to picture the U.S. immigration system as a multi-lane highway, where every country gets its own lane with a toll booth.
That's a good analogy.
If you're from a country with low immigration demand, your lane is wide open. But for India, the toll booth is functionally broken. Demand so vastly outpaces the artificial cap that this massive, decade-long traffic jam has formed.
Exactly. To put in perspective, as of the data in this 2026 report, the government is only processing EB-3 applications for Indian nationals that were filed way back in 2015 to 2017.
That is insane. You are looking at potentially a 10-year wait just to get the visa to come cut hair.
It's completely broken.
Yeah.
The federal system is simply not designed to accommodate this specific labor need, despite the massive domestic shortage of workers.
So getting a visa to work as a barber is a total nightmare of red tape and multi-year wait times. But what if you bypass the chair entirely?
Now we're talking.
Right. What if you just want to own the shop? If you're an entrepreneur looking at this gap, you're probably wondering how to bypass that visa line entirely. You have a booming industry, high wages, and a labor shortage.
But the front door for workers is barricaded.
Exactly. Which brings us to the most critical insight of this entire deep research report: regulatory arbitrage. The state boards strictly regulate who holds the shears. They do not regulate who holds the lease.
This is the massive loophole in the ownership structure. In the vast majority of jurisdictions, you do not need to be a licensed barber to own a barbershop.
Wow.
And crucially, you don't even need to be a U.S. citizen.
So you completely bypass the labor classification by acting as capital. You aren't coming over to sweep floors and pay booth rent. You are building the infrastructure and collecting the profits.
Exactly. Places like Tennessee, Minnesota, and Massachusetts explicitly outline this in their regulations. The only operational requirement is that the unlicensed owner must employ a state-licensed shop manager on staff.
Just to oversee the actual haircutting and regulatory compliance on the floor.
Right. They handle the technical side, you own the business.
I love this. So let's lay out the exact playbook for this. Can we walk through the step-by-step process of setting this up from abroad?
Absolutely. The report provides a very specific roadmap for a foreign national, say, someone sitting in Bangalore right now, to legally register this entity.
Because the first hurdle is usually the assumption that you need U.S. residency to form a company, right?
Which is a total misconception. Step 1 is forming a limited liability company, an LLC. And that does not require citizenship or residency.
You just choose a state and file the paperwork.
Right. You select a business-friendly state, file the articles of organization, which in a place like California might cost around $70, and secure your entity. The LLC provides a shield, separating your personal assets from the business's liabilities.
Okay, easy enough. You register the name, maybe file a DBA if you need one. But step 3 is where the immediate friction usually happens. To open a U.S. bank account or process credit cards, your LLC needs an EIN, an employer identification number from the IRS.
Right, and the standard form for an EIN demands a social security number.
Exactly. So how does a foreign investor clear that without triggering some huge immigration red flag?
Well, the report details a brilliant, perfectly legal workaround using IRS Form SS4.
Okay, how does it work?
The IRS is primarily concerned with collecting tax revenue, not policing immigration status. So when a foreign national gets to line 7B, which asks for the SSN, they are instructed to simply write the word foreign.
Wait, literally just write foreign on the form?
Yes, just write foreign. Now, you can't process it instantaneously online like a domestic applicant can. You have to submit it via fax or physical mail.
Okay.
It takes a few weeks to process, but the IRS will absolutely issue an EIN to your LLC based purely on your foreign status.
That is a massive piece of intel. It completely decouples your business structure from the need for a U.S. visa.
It really does. So once you have that federal tax identity established, Step 4 shifts the battle back to the local level.
Right, getting the local license.
Yeah. You need your state tax ID, a seller's permit if you plan to sell retail products like pomades or shampoos, and a local city or county business license.
And step 5 is securing the commercial space. You verify the commercial zoning so the city doesn't shut you down for operating in a residential zone, and you sign a lease.
And just for context on costs, the report notes that startup costs usually range from $50,000 for a really lean setup all the way to $200,000 plus for a premium build-out.
Which brings us to step 6, the final boss of this whole process, passing the physical health inspections.
This is where foreign investors frequently stumble, because the requirements are hyper-specific to the state, and sometimes even the county.
What are they looking for?
The state board will physically inspect the build-out of your space before issuing an establishment license. They're checking for proper plumbing, the correct ratio of barbicide disinfectants, ensuring you have non-porous materials on the chairs, things like that.
And the report highlights a fantastic quirk in Massachusetts that just perfectly illustrates how granular this gets.
Oh, the sink rule, yes. In Massachusetts, if your multi-thousand-dollar build-out does not include a dedicated separate sink, strictly for washing hands.
Completely independent from the sinks used to wash hair, right?
Exactly. If you don't have that separate hand-washing sink, the state board will instantly fail your inspection and totally halt your opening.
It's crazy. You miss one tiny line item about plumbing in the state code, and your entire investment is just frozen.
Yep. But assuming you do pass the inspection, you move to step 7. You apply for the establishment license, you submit your floor plans, your LLC documentation, and most importantly, the owner's ID and the active licenses of the U.S. Barbers you've hired.
Especially that designated shop manager we talked about.
Exactly. And finally, step 8 is getting insured and running the business. You procure general liability or workers' compensation insurance, and then you finalize hiring your barbers, either using that W-2 commission model or the booth rental model we discussed.
And then the cash flow begins.
It does. However, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to inject a heavy dose of reality regarding the immigration limitations of this whole strategy.
Right. Because owning the asset is fine, but you can't just fly over on a tourist visa and start cutting hair.
Exactly. Setting up the LLC and owning the shop is completely legal from abroad, but you cannot use a B1, B2 tourist visa to fly into the U.S. and physically operate the shop.
The B1, B2 allows you to attend business meetings, sign your commercial leases, maybe negotiate some contracts. But the second you stand behind that cash register, or sweep the floor, or manage the daily schedule, you have crossed the line into active employment.
Yeah, that is a direct violation of federal law. You are strictly capital. You are the investor.
Which naturally leads a lot of foreign nationals to look at the E2 investor visa, right? Because that's designed specifically for people who want to live in the U.S. to direct and develop a business they have invested substantial capital into.
It is, but the report drops a really major caveat for the Indian demographic here.
What's the catch?
India does not have an E2 treaty with the United States.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so an Indian citizen holding solely an Indian passport cannot utilize the direct E2 route to move to the U.S. and run their barbershop, no matter how much money they invest.
So they are totally locked out of that option.
Unless they acquire citizenship in a treaty country first, like getting a passport from Canada or Grenada, that door is closed.
That is wild. It really forces the foreign owner to rely entirely on their U.S. licensed shop manager to run the day-to-day operations.
It does. It requires immense trust in your local management team. But honestly, considering the decade-long visa backlogs for workers, leveraging capital to build a business entity remains the most viable, immediate strategy for a foreigner to enter the U.S. grooming market.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, it really redefines how you look at the entire industry. Even if you aren't planning to open a shop tomorrow, this deep dive proves that understanding the gap between federal immigration law and state-level business law is where true entrepreneurial strategy actually lives.
Absolutely. The barrier isn't the skill of the haircut. The barrier is a century of localized state regulations colliding with a federal immigration system that just refuses to acknowledge the reality of the labor market.
The disconnect is staggering. You can be locked out as an employee, but totally welcomed as a business owner. Where there is regulatory friction, there is usually financial opportunity for those who understand how to structure around it.
That's the real takeaway here.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, drawn from the emerging trends in the report, because it challenges literally everything we just discussed.
Oh, you're talking about the tech shift.
Yeah. We spent this entire deep dive analyzing strict physical floor plans, dedicated hand-washing sinks, and brick-and-mortar health inspections. But the gig economy is accelerating rapidly.
The rise of mobile on-demand grooming.
Exactly. Uber for barbers. We are seeing this massive push toward at-home, subscription-based haircut services facilitated entirely by app.
Which totally sidesteps the traditional barbershop model.
Right. So the question is, how much longer can these century-old state boards maintain their grip on physical establishment licenses? If the technology allows a licensed barber to safely sanitize their tools and deliver a premium fade right in the client's living room, will the gig economy eventually force these regulatory fiefdoms to rewrite the rules entirely?
It's a huge collision between digital innovation and legacy bureaucracy.
It really is, and it is definitely something to keep an eye on. All right, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.